Hi everyone, welcome back to High Vibes and a Mic. I'm your host Veronique. Today we're going to talk to David Waldas. I had a great conversation with him and I agree on a lot of things we talk about because a lot of what he's working on was actually describing my life. So David is the founder of the Aligned Living System. He's a globally recognized leader in personal development and transformative coaching. He helps individuals achieve alignment, flow, and resilience. So the topic we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about his program, the Aligned Living System, that help transform personal and professional growth. We're going to talk about overcoming inner barriers to self-love and achieving flow and building resilience. You're going to love this conversation and what David and I talk about. Also, don't forget to go on. I saw that a lot of you already took classes on my affiliate program with Soul, SOL, where they offer a lot of guided experiences. And if you want to do guided meditation, I know that's what I do because it's very hard for me to meditate on my own. Guided meditation, yoga, tarot, or anything you like, take a class, go to Soul, SOL. I will put the link in the show notes and also put my code Veronique10 to get 10% off. So now let's hear it from David. Hi, David. How are you today?
Good. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It's great to meet you.
Yeah, thank you for coming. So today we're going to talk about 3 different kind of people: empath, biohackers, and spiritual junkies. So very, very intriguing about your work, of course.
Yeah.
So because we're going to talk about being aligned, the aligned living system.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. The aligned living
So
system.
please, can you explain what is the aligned living system?
Yeah. So, it's a system that I channeled. I'm a psychic channel. And, I was doing that sort of work for years. And then in 2016, I had a spontaneous experience where all of a sudden I was popped into a state of consciousness where I was kind of in the middle of this place where I'd bounced back and forth of, many times where that grounded, solid part of me. I used to be a school teacher and a soccer coach and an entrepreneur, and I was in sales for a long time. So I had this really grounded part of me, but it was also this psychic and channel and, way out there part of me. And I'd always bounce back and forth between those two worlds. And when I had that spontaneous experience in 2016, all of a sudden I found this cusp right between those two worlds where I can access both at the same time. And it gives me this ability to be solid and grounded and make it, not being the spiritual person that's way out there floating around, just having these experiences that don't create anything here, but actually being able to take that access and ground it into my body and teach other people how to do the same thing so that we're able to be both tapped in and solid and grounded and do concrete things and make a difference in the world from that way. And so in that spontaneous experience, that became what aligned living is. And so, there's so many ways to describe it. And, I think that I work a lot with empaths too. And I think that, a lot of people that are empaths don't realize how different their experience of being is than other people. And so, we're a pretty small portion of the population, but we think everybody has the same gift that we do, whether we call it a gift or not. But I always say, if you walk into a room and you get a vibe to that room, like you walk in and you can feel what's going on and it feels kind of like the room comes at you and maybe there's a little bit of an adjustment period. There's a little bit of like, okay, this is what's going on. I can feel my energy adjusting. I can become aware of, how people are feeling, what's going on here. And there's a whole bunch of information that I just receive instantly and I have to deal with. And, that's really kind of the experience of being an empath in those situations and settings. And for the majority of the population, they walk in those settings and they're just observing it with their 5 senses. They don't have this influx of emotional energy and information that they have to navigate. And so those of us that I can feel that for you, you're obviously very empathic. And so when we have that, it's a lot to manage, right? And quite often it feels like we're always responding to what's going on. We're not in charge. And we're always trying to get back on top of it. We're always trying to get the world around us to be in a good place so that we can feel good because it's always running into us.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Sorry, I was trying to when I was reading your website to check in which category I could be. Last
Yeah.
time I thought I could be in the three, even three categories, you know?
Yeah. And that's usually who I work with is all three.
Okay. So we're going to talk about that. And also before, I want to go back to when you were saying you are a psychic. So when did you discover that you are a psychic? Was it since you were a child or one day you're meditating and
Yeah,
you see
looking
something?
back on it, there was so many times it would happen, and I would just kind of. I mean, my daughters did the same thing, where they're just like, they'd have these psychic experiences or know something was going to happen, or and they're just like, oh, whatever. And that's kind of how I was. And then on my 30th birthday, I got invited to a psychic fair, and I'd never done anything like that before. I was like, I'm open minded. This will be fun. And I'm walking around this huge psychic fair, probably 50 different psychics in this big ballroom. And this one woman, Sandy, I'm just like, that's who I'm supposed to work with. It's just obvious, like not thinking that that's even weird in and of itself, that I just know that that's who I'm supposed to work with. And so I sit down with her and she just starts going on about, you're planning this big move across the country. And I see, not everybody's happy with this, but you need to do what's right for you. And I'm like, how could she know this? She's like, this job you've been wanting is coming through in the next 2 weeks. And then as she was finishing, she goes, oh, sweetie, I like this one. I'm hearing the same gift I have. It's going to open up for you too, and quick.
Wow.
Literally the next day, I was going over to a realtor's office, and we've been having some problems with her and wanted to terminate the contract and go with somebody else. And she'd been ghosting me for about a week. And so I'm in the turn lane ready to pull into her office. I'm like, I'm going to take matters in my own hands. She won't return my calls. I'm showing up. And I hear this subtle voice in the back of my head of not now. I was like, heard it though, because I was on a mission. Then I heard not now, and a little louder, and I still ignored it. And then I
Yeah.
heard not now. I was like, oh, okay. Pulled back out of the turn lane, went home. About an hour later, I'm sitting on the couch and I hear now. Drive back over, and as I'm opening the front door to a realtor's office, she's walking in the back door like we have an appointment or something. Hands me the paperwork, decided to terminate the contract. I sign it, and we're done. And I'm like, whew, this world that Sandy opened up for me, like life's gonna be pretty easy. But of course, that was a huge misconception about what it means to have this intuitive and psychic ability. It's really quite often we're just steered into whatever growth point we need. A lot of it's about our personal development and our spiritual development, and that became really what my life became dedicated to. But it all opened up very spontaneously within my awareness, even though it was always running behind the scenes. Like I have memories of, just funny incidents. Like when I was in college and I was sitting on the couch talking with a friend of mine and the phone rang. So I stood up to go answer it, and she's looking at me funny. I'm like, what? And she's like, and then it rang a second time. And I'm like, I'm going to answer the phone. She's like, that was the first time it rang. I'm like, I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, she's crazy. And I went and answered the phone and came back and but I had a lot of experiences like that where I'm just like, I don't know what they're missing. Like the phone was ringing.
So you would describe yourself as an empath?
Yeah, yeah, very much so.
Very much.
And that's where the aligned living work comes in is, I work with empathic people teaching us how to harness our gifts, because we default it like, as when you think about babies, right? Every little baby comes onto this planet and goes, what's going on here? And if they're just a five sensory activated baby, they use their five senses. They taste, touch, smell, feel, the hear everything. And that's how they make sense of the world. But those of us that have that empathic gift, that ability to feel the emotional experience and to feel things so deeply, we put it on outside too, just like every other baby did. And we get our sense of the world as a reflection of it. And it never occurs to us, there's never an intervention that goes, it doesn't have to be turned on outside all the time. We can actually take that emotional body, that gift, and actually, instead of having it 90% external and 10% internal, we can flip that around and make it 90% internal and 10% external. And the moment we do that, our whole experience of being is different, because instead of trying to navigate a world that's coming at us all the time, we reverse the feedback loop. It's not coming at us. Now we're coming into their room. And we get a 10% of an overlay of an awareness of the room, but 90% of us. And we go, okay, this is me affecting the room now, instead of this is the room affecting me. And it's a spontaneous experience, just like I had in 2016 when we take people into that. And then the rest of the system is learning how to navigate it and stabilize it. And I always joke that we've all had aligned moments, but this is aligned living. This is about staying here and operating from this place of our alignment.
So you help people, empath, not feeling too sensitive, feeling
Well,
too much emotion, being overwhelmed
yeah,
by
well,
other
here's
people's
the funny
energy.
thing. about it, right, is we think of the definition of an empath as the ability to feel others deeply.
But
And
not
really
all the
what it,
time, right?
right, but it's the ability to feel deeply. And so whatever, if we have great vision or great hearing, whatever we look at or whatever we listen to, like, we have this great perception of it. And so the same thing with our empathic ability. If we take it, instead of turning it on our surroundings and reading the emotions of everything that most of it's none of our business and not even relevant to us, when we bring it back home and place it on us, now we're not dimming that ability at all. In fact, we can turn it up even stronger, because we want to be able to feel ourselves. We want to be really clear about who we are and what we want and how we're going to show up. And when that's really loud and we're just looping it into ourselves, now the way that we navigate is very different than when we're just streaming the outer world into us and having to, like, we were always trying to figure out ways to turn that down. And I look back at my past, whether it was, I'm like, I don't drink anymore, like, there's no appeal to me, but I used to love it because it would make the world stop. It'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
finally there's no noise coming at me all the time. I can numb myself. And I think so many people do that, whether it's shutting down their consciousness, whether it's just eating foods that make them feel heavy and shut down, or whether it's an empath, like, so often the only way we know how to make it stop is to alter our own consciousness in some way by dimming that down. And this teaches, the aligned living work is about how to enhance it more and more and stronger, because when we place it on ourselves at 90% and external at 10%, we want it to be as bright as it can be. And most of us are like, how do I get this to be a little less? Because the world's, it's as much of beauty as out there. There's also a lot of challenge, and to feel it all the time is just overwhelming.
Yeah, I remember I'm better at it now, but I remember when I was younger, I always felt responsible for other people's emotions.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot to carry.
Mm-hmm.
So how will you help someone like to break that kind of pattern
Yeah,
as an
and so
empath?
here's what I discovered about this. And it's funny. I used to be same way, right? I kind of felt like the sheriff too, and then being a school teacher on top of it, where you're always responsible for the room around you. It's like, how many, if you know many teachers, quite often teachers go out into the world and think it's still their classroom. That probably described me too. But it was, everybody else's emotions I needed to manage them because I was feeling them. And as much as we want the best for everybody, if somebody's in a bad mood and it makes it hard for us, we're helping them, but we're also helping us at the same time. And I smile a lot, like, it's just kind of my nature, but I used to smile even more.
I was smiling. I'm like, maybe that's why I attract a lot of people. That's why
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
attract a lot of people, you're always like, it's available, right?
I'm sure. So I remember somebody saying to me, I was actually at my office when I had a brick and mortar office while I worked out of, and they said, "You must be the happiest person I know, because every time I see you, you just have this big smile on your face." And I got this download, that, like, and I didn't really like what the download was, because what it said was, you're really not. You keep smiling at everybody because it puts them in a better place, and then they feel better to you when you're smiling at them. I'm like, oh, come on. Like, that doesn't feel as good as I'm just happy and I'm lighting everybody up. There's something in it for me. Really, I'm doing this because it feels good when I adjust people. And I realize that as empaths, we're constantly putting so much energy, giving ourselves away to make everybody around us feel good, because we can't feel good until they feel good. And the moment we reverse that feedback loop, all of a sudden it's okay for people to be where they're at, because we're not streaming it into us. And we can be there for them so much more deeply because they're not contagious anymore. Their mood isn't contagious. So I don't need to make them be in a better mood for me to be okay. I can actually be okay and engage with them. And then, interestingly, they become in a better mood. But it's not this same dynamic where I need them to be that way in order for me to be okay. And then we make decisions because we want to help rather than because we have to, because I can't be around you when you're like this. And so I got to get you in a better place.
But did you notice the change in people when you're not like that anymore? You're not like available like that anymore.
You
I don't think I'm not gonna say they get mad, but they don't
The
understand what's
adjustment
going on.
period.
Why aren't you available? Like you used to be all the time.
Yeah. I mean, it does take an adjustment period, because they're like, I liked you better when you didn't have your own needs.
Mm-hmm.
I
Your own
liked you
life.
better when you just were, when we all focused on me. Isn't it better when we all just focus on me?
Exactly. So that's the empath. So what is the biohackers? Because I don't know about that one.
Yeah, and so it's funny. I think that one is people that are just looking for ways to better their system. And so we look at the longevity field. We look at people that want a sharper mind, like basically people that are always looking for a way to go from where they are to another level of themselves. And they kind of fall in with the spiritual junkies, where they're always looking for the next thing to light them up, and then they have it, and then they kind of start to dim again and go, oh, I need something else. And so it seems like a lot of those folks come to me when they're like, I'm tired of this roller coaster of, I go to an event, I feel really good, and then I slowly dim down, and then I'm like, I need another event. And so the aligned living system is a system that people use, every day, and to engage in their life and to engage with themselves, to maintain alignment, rather
Okay.
than, and that's why I do like 10-week programs with people to really stabilize it. And as much as I love doing retreats and workshops and stuff like that, but that 10-week program is where I always start with people, because it's about creating a foundation so that they can continue to live it, rather than an experience where they get this really high and then slowly come back to how they've known themselves, or maybe a notch up. But, we're about building an aligned, stable internal environment, rather than highs and lows.
And also, you mentioned inner child because
Mm.
I talked to someone last week, another guest, and she had a whole spreadsheet about talking to your inner child.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
very important. So, what is it for you?
Yeah, so it's funny. The inner child work I've always had kind of mixed feelings about, because I think it's a place where people can get a little stuck in victimhood, and a little bit, like it can be a place where people can spend a lot of time. And so the way that we do the inner child work with the aligned living system is recognizing that we all have had experiences in life where we decided there's a part of us that we'd be better off without. And quite often it happens as a kid, right? We go, you know
Yeah.
what? I'm too sensitive. I'm shutting that off. Or I'm too loud. I'm too excitable. And so when we go, and it's very short sighted, right? And of course, as kids, like, what do we, and sometimes we do it as adults too, but we go, this isn't serving me. Now mom's mad at me all the time, or, I'm in trouble at school. I got to turn off whatever this is. And so we fracture ourselves, and we take a part of our wholeness and remove it from us. And it just sits dormant inside of us. And then we go through the world and go, God, it's a lot easier without that part of me. But this is why it's short sighted, is we go, but now I'm not whole. And even if that part of me was challenging, being without it creates a lack. It creates this part of me that I'm always seeking to find. And I've already decided I'm not going to find it inside myself, because that's where I fractured it from. And so then we go out into the world with this lack of wholeness, and we look for that completeness of us in the world. And then we find these little kind of placeholders, whether they're relationships or work or the way people see us or the way that we engage. And there's a kind of this really hidden desperation to have that. And when we look at our life, like, where are we sacrificing ourselves? Where are we doing things that we wouldn't do in other areas of our life to maintain that? And that's always the clues of where getting something that we've fractured off of ourselves and trying to fulfill it in the outer world, because we're willing to do things we wouldn't do for other things, because all we want is to feel whole. And so part of the system is we go back in and we basically take that fractured self, and it's funny because it doesn't hold a grudge. It doesn't go like, "Oh, it's about time you came back. You abandoned me when I was 3, and I've just been sitting here in the dark waiting for you while you lived your life."
Yeah.
It just goes, "You're back. I'm home," and it just integrates back into us very easily. And then when we do that, something bizarre happens, because whatever it was that we were doing in the outer world to seek that peace that we just brought back into us, we stop having the same desire to do it. And we stop sacrificing and giving ourselves away in order to maintain it, because there's no desperation for it anymore. And it may still be a nice match, it may still be great, but we're not willing to do something that's not good for us anymore to achieve that, to hold it in place. And it's been bizarre, because it's so much of it happens in the unconscious. And so somebody retrieves something inside themselves to go, yeah, I'm not interested anymore in doing that thing that I did every day before, that never felt good, but I did it for the outcome. These trade-offs, and all of a sudden, like, I already feel full. I don't need to give myself away for that anymore. And the more we retrieve of that, and return ourselves to more wholeness and more wholeness and more wholeness, the more we align our lives and our actions with what's really right for us and how we want to serve in the world, rather than giving ourselves away and locking us in these kind of out of alignment situations in order to feel whole, that we never feel whole really. And because we're at the mercy of it and we have to do whatever it takes in order to keep that in place. And the moment that thing or person or situation decides it's not going to play anymore, all of a sudden we're fractured and we're, like we're just distraught by it because we just lost our wholeness again, which was really not our wholeness. It was just this placeholder. Make sense?
Yeah, I mean, that was a full explanation.
And so it's a little different than inner child work because it's really just
Hmm.
like we fractured ourselves off and we've all done it. There's no shame
Yeah.
in it. Like we think, oh, the world's gonna be way better, way easier for me if I'm not that, because that doesn't get good reviews. You
Eh,
know?
eh, Is it like better to focus on what you want than focusing on what's wrong, I guess, so you can experience something better in your life?
Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, so much of the work with this too is we just keep finding this place inside of ourselves where I call we get this aligned perspective. And when we're out in the problems, we get very uncomfortable. We go, I don't like the way this is. And then we kind of churn in it and we ruminate about it and maybe catastrophize about it and get upset or get resentful or whatever it is. And then we're really tied into it. And when we make decisions from that place, from that discomfort, all of our decisions are about how do I make that different? And making that different is seldom about really what we want. It's about going, I'm tired of this thing and I want it to be different. And when we go into our alignment, we go, yeah, I don't like the way that is, but it doesn't feel quite so personal. It doesn't feel quite so urgent. And
Hmm.
so from this place of alignment, this aligned perspective that we use this exercise to get into, we go, what do I want? What is my next right action? What is it that I want to walk towards? What is it that I want to create? Because that thing that I don't like, engaging with that doesn't create what I want. It's just me trying to stop that thing from bothering me.
Hmm. Okay, yeah, not concentrating on what doesn't work. Okay.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
the biohackers, they how can they integrate something like spiritual practices
Mhm.
without feeling like they're adding another to-do list, in their lives?
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's it is like the biohackers and the high performers are like that too. They're like, they don't want to do things that waste their time. Like the whole
Yeah.
idea of biohacking is like, I want the most direct path from here to there. I don't want to do it the way everybody else is doing it or doing what I'm being told. I want to do what works because it's effective and it's the most direct path to whatever it is. And so, why does this? It's because this works. And I always joke around with like, well, like, why do we do that? Well, it works, right? It creates this alignment where we're much more in touch with ourselves. And, from this place, we take a much more direct path into creating and certain, I talk a lot about service because when we're aligned with ourselves, people go, that seems kind of selfish. It's the more we get in touch with ourselves, that's where all of our service comes from. When we're upset and we don't like the way things are, that's when we're worried about ourselves. But the moment we come home and go, oh, I feel really good. I feel okay. Like I feel clean. I feel more whole. Now everything in me is about service. When I'm upset about something, everything's about me. When I don't like the way that is, everything's about me. When I'm uncomfortable, everything's about me. But when I'm aligned, everything's about offering me and being of service. And so people go, well, it's selfish to just, push that away and be this. Like, no, because from here, all we want to do is serve. When we're out there, we're always wanting to struggle and fight against and be upset. And then it's always about us. And when we come home to us, it's never about us, which is a rather ironic thing.
That is so true. Yeah, that's really true.
I mean,
I was
right,
going to
right.
ask about your program. That's 10 weeks, right?
Yeah, yeah. And so I do
Okay.
one-to-one, I do groups too, which basically it takes people on this journey where, we start out with this idea of when the world's streaming at us, it affects us all the time. And we only know ourselves in that. I talk a lot about our self-concept, and that's really what we start working with at the beginning of this is our self-concept is how we know ourselves based on the way that we've had to manage ourselves in the world. And when the world comes at us all the time and we don't have a way other than to shut ourselves down, to not let the emotional energy and feeling of everybody and everything come in, we create a lot of coping mechanisms to deal with that. And we get to know ourselves through that and who we are, how we show up in the world, what we think we like and don't like. And when we don't have that challenge anymore because we've actually reversed the feedback loop, something beautiful happens, like this emerging self, this self concept, this idea of who we are starts to shift. And we realize that we're quite different and much more in a very positive, beautiful way than we thought we were because so much of like to be an empath in this world, it requires so much from us. And so we're always playing this game with how do I manage this outer world and then retreat and just shut down and go, like, but then I miss people and I got to go back out in the world again, but then I can't stand it because it's just too much. And then, and so when that's not our world anymore, something else happens. And there's a part of us, again, that's about service, a part of us that wants to show up and make a difference in the world because that's all we've ever really wanted. We've just been so distracted by the challenge that we're always tapped into. And so the 10-week program starts really by reversing that feedback loop and then starting to play with letting our identity emerge more of who we are underneath all those coping mechanisms. And from there, it goes into stabilizing it. It goes into creating this much more safe environment inside of ourselves where we feel more stable and trusting. And when that happens, all of a sudden we start to become more adventurous and we start to become, much more willing to go after what it is that we really want in life because we feel stable enough to do it. We feel safe enough to do it. And it has a lot of secondary gains with it, you might say, meaning that like we become much more intuitive because everybody's very intuitive, that has an empathic gift. But if the loud world's coming at us, that world's usually louder than our empathic gift. And so it can be really hard to hear it. And the moment that quiet happens and the world stops streaming in, all of a sudden, it's not necessarily that our intuition gets louder, but the background noise stops. And then we can hear it and we become way more intuitively guided. And so then it's about stabilizing in that and about really creating a life that matches us truly and feels fulfilling and exciting to wake up to every morning.
Do you do like group meditation?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
a lot of exercise. I don't know. People have to write stuff, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
Meditation,
people journaling is an important
journaling.
part of it for sure because when we have shifts in consciousness, it's so funny. A shift in consciousness comes with a lot. It's not just I feel more vibrant. It's I'm thinking differently. I'm looking at myself differently. I'm looking at the world differently, and it happens spontaneously. Like I was here and now I'm here, and so it can be really hard for us to track the changes that we're making and the growth we're making and the solidness inside of ourselves because it feels like it's always been there the moment we achieve it. And then we forget yesterday or 5 minutes ago or 3 minutes ago, it wasn't there. And so I really encourage people to journal a lot so they can track where they came from. And there's always this period. It's so funny. Week 7 to 8 in the 10-week program. This is why I realized we need to have 10 weeks. Is there's this piece where all of a sudden people forget that this has done anything and for all the first 7 weeks they're like, oh my god, this is amazing, I can't believe all this shifted. And they all come in week 8. Often people are late for week 8, and often people will text me going like, hey, I got something else going on, is there a way I could I think I got everything I need to out of this. It's hilarious. Like at first I took it so personal. I'm like, are you kidding me, we're just getting in. But now I realize it's such a natural part of it. And there's like, it's right when they're about to really break through into this ability to be much deeper inside themselves and much more aligned with themselves. And everybody just goes into this place of like, I don't think anything changed. I don't know. It's
After
hilarious.
eight
And then
weeks
between the
of
seventh and eighth
walking,
week, yeah, every time. And
oh, wow.
then between week 8 and 9, all of a sudden they're just like, now I'm like at a whole nother level of this.
Okay.
But our human brain resists. It's like we find these weird excuses to go back to what we knew and restabilize and what never worked for us and forget why we came to do this in the first place. And so it's kind of a hilarious week. And I always warn people. And I said,
I
this
was
is
gonna
going to
say, yeah,
happen.
you should
And they
warn
always
them.
go,
Yeah.
well, hard to imagine. And then they come in late and go, what are we doing today? Like, is this almost over?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it can go fast. It can be slow. So like 10 weeks. And what about the spiritual junkies? I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm like that a little bit. When you go from one practice to another
Yeah.
or from
Yeah.
something else, can you calm those people? Can they be, satisfied?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like that week 7 to 8 problem. It's the same
Okay.
thing where they're just like, I'm about to reach my breakthrough. I'm about to go into this next level of me. And that's scary, right? Like it's different than I've done things. I don't know what that's going to create. I don't know what that's going to disrupt in my life. And so quite often those people kind of jump to the next thing. And so again, that's why this program is 10 weeks, because in that period is when we usher them through into the next level. And they'd have to run away for it not to happen because it it just naturally happens. They, I think spiritual junkies love to see a program through, And so they'll still show up. And that's really when we go over that hump. And then they go, oh, this is actually my practice now. It's not a 10-week program I took. It's a practice now for how I want to live inside myself and engage with the world.
Okay. Just adopt this
Yeah, yeah,
practice and
yeah.
stick with it.
Yeah, that it works. And quite often people will stop, because they'll go, well, I feel like I got things figured out. I can stop doing that now. And then they'll call me and go, hey, things haven't been going so great.
I need a refresher.
I'm like, oh, cool. When did you stop doing the practice?
Yeah.
Probably about 3 weeks before things stopped going so great.
They never learn. And what does it mean? I saw on your website SPS, sensory processing sensitivity. So what does it mean to move past the label and step into alignment?
Yeah, like we just process things differently when we're in that in the alignment. Like everything feels different. And like I said before, if our vision was fantastic, or our hearing was fantastic, or our sense of smell was fantastic, and we just utilize it all out in the outer world, like it's just so much sensory processing. There's just so much to take in. And so when we are really intentional about, what we place our emotional body on, what we place this gift on, we aren't overwhelmed at all with all the sensory processing. Like it doesn't require the same from us because we're feeling ourselves now, and we become. I mean, this is a really interesting component of this is that when we absorb everything around us, right? We walk through the world and our emotional body's outside and their emotions run into us. Our body vibrates at different frequencies. And so if our body, it's like if the door is open to the outside, the temperature of the house is going to be what's outside. And the same thing with us. Like if our doors are open to the world like that, the vibration of our body isn't going to be us. It's going to be whatever we're surrounded by. And so when we clean that up and go, okay, I'm going to actually claim my vibration and I'm going to let my body be resonant with myself, all of a sudden we end up being in our body a lot more. And we end up taking care of our body a lot more because we feel the fluctuations in it. But when our body was just the energy running through us, a lot of empaths don't feel very connected with their body because it doesn't feel like them, because it's not vibrating at the same frequency as them. And so, like, I remember I was at a psychic fair, years ago when I first started doing this work, and some lady, a healer there, looked at me. She goes, you kind of hang out just like right here above your head. I'm like, huh? And she's like, it's not bad. But I'm like, but in hindsight, I'm like, it wasn't working for me because I was just abandoning my body all the time because my body was just, it didn't feel like me. It felt like whatever I was surrounded by. And so I had this great coping mechanism to just hang out up here. And now I feel fine. But I had an incredible pain threshold. I wouldn't feel what was happening to my body, but it didn't help me choose what was right for me to eat. It didn't help me choose if I needed to exercise. It didn't help me know how to take care of myself. And because it was just too unbearable. And so as once I got the download and started reversing that feedback loop, I was able to move my awareness back into my body. And I see this with clients all the time, where we actually feel ourselves in a much more just profound way. And then all of a sudden we care for our body differently because we see it as us, not as this thing that gets us around.
I think I will need more of that because sometimes I don't think I take really good care of myself. Too overwhelmed with everything is going on around, It's too many things going on. So
Yeah. And when our body
tough for me to
doesn't feel isn't
focus.
a good vibration, it craves junk food. It craves, like
Yeah.
like drama. It craves all of these things. And so when we clean up, all of a sudden that other stuff just doesn't seem that interesting because it's not in resonance anymore. We're now in resonance with ourselves. And that resonance and non-resonance thing. And it's funny how many spiritual people and I remember doing this before Aligned Living myself, where we go, oh, I use my resonance to decide what's right for me. But if our body's a mess and we're tapped into all this drama and stuff, and we go, oh, that feels in resonance with me. Yeah, more drama. That feels in resonance with you because that's where you're at. But when you go into more alignment, you go, oh, the drama doesn't feel in resonance with me. But what does? Oh, this uplifting conversation, engaging with this positive person, getting excited about going for this walk in the woods. That feels in resonance. But when our body's tapped into the drama and the lower frequencies, we go, what's in resonance with me? Well, that apple pie, that's what's in resonance with me. Oh, and ice cream, that's even more in resonance with me.
Yes. But I don't understand why some people are just addicted to that, to drama.
Yeah,
I can feel it. I mean, now I know I can recognize them from far and I stay
right.
away. But during all my 30s, like I was just attracting people like that.
Yeah,
And I was
yeah.
like, but
And
I'm
that's
not
part of
like
being an
that.
empath, right?
Oh,
Because people are looking for, I always joke when people like empath's favorite thing to do is give. And then we get all upset because all that shows up is takers. Like, why is that surprising? I'm walking through the world going, how
Seriously.
can I give? And a taker's like right here, and I'm like,
Wow.
oh, perfect. Like all these takers in my life. Like, but as we learn to give and receive, all of a sudden, like the takers are like, oh, giving too? I'll find somebody else that wants to just give to me. I'll find you not that interesting. And we can let them find us not that interesting.
And what's weird from my experience is when I decided, okay, I'm not gonna be like that anymore, they just all disappeared on their own.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I
They
didn't even
find
have
it.
to
And
break up with them. They just
yeah,
all left on their own.
I call
It's
that
like,
the gift of rejection. Like when
okay,
we let that happen, like when we hold our alignment and then people find us not interesting,
yeah,
to go, that's fine. It's okay for them to not be interested in me. It's okay for them to walk past me and go talk to somebody else because it's not in resonance. But often as empaths, we go, oh, how can I make them feel better? How can I? And then we adjust ourselves and all of a sudden they're our best friend. And, we have nothing in common other than our ability to appear to be their best friend, and
yeah.
become who they want as a best friend.
Some I was hurt, but some I was like, thank you, finally.
Of
But some I was hurt. And then
course, yeah.
now, with time I see, oh, thank God, they're not in my life anymore because they were just taking, taking, and taking.
Yeah,
And they
absolutely,
were taking. I
absolutely.
remember once I hung up the phone after a 1 hour conversation and I was just drained. I had to
Mhm.
take a
Yeah,
nap. It just,
yeah,
that
absolutely.
person took all my energy for like an
Yeah,
hour
the
on the
energy
phone.
vampire thing where
Yes,
yeah, it's real.
it's real. Seriously,
Yeah,
it's
and
real.
sometimes they're empaths too, like, sometimes it's a way that an empath finds as a coping mechanism, is that they just hook into everybody else's energy and just draw off of it, and that's like, we all get really creative with how we navigate the world and how we make everything okay.
Yeah. I had that question, why do spiritual seekers often feel emotionally hijacked despite trying to so many healing modalities? So maybe,
Mm.
if we go with that, just don't say no. Just don't accept all those people to just suck the life out of you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I think that piece too of when we know our value through giving, because that empathic ability to just like it's really hard for us to be discerning because particularly the people that love to take our energy are people that show up in need. They go,
Yeah.
oh, like I don't know what to do, and like oh God, and there's a part of this like I want to help, but there's also a part of you like where we feel this person that's just like melting, and we're like, oh my God, it hurts me as I feel them. I got to help them, and it becomes compulsive. Like we don't even have a choice until we just, some people just at a certain point just cut it off and go, like I just need to get away. Like my choice is to run. you know.
Because I don't mind helping, but sometimes you realize that actually you can even not help those people. Sometimes they need like a professional.
Yeah, yeah.
One of my friends, like, you need to see somebody you can talk to professionally. I cannot help you anymore.
And once they've drained your energy, they're just going to move to somebody else to drain their energy. And so it's not like all you're doing is just, I always joke that like, it's quite often empaths are living in the marrow of our own bones because that's the only thing left that we have to, because we've given everything else away.
I know. Well, that's really, yeah, that's really enlightening what you just said to me because I never really realized, this thing about being empath. I just thought that was
Yeah.
nice.
You're nice too, but it's compulsively nice. I didn't get to choose it. I just had to be it.
So you also have a podcast? What do you talk about in the podcast? Is it weekly, monthly?
Weekly Aligned Living System podcast. And, we
Okay.
talk about, aligned living from different perspectives and how people navigate the world. And
Okay.
it's train coaches to do the system the aligned living system as well too. So I co-host with this guy Nick Musica, who's one of the coaches I've trained, and he's pretty fun. He was a SEO guy, search engine optimization computer guy, and
Yeah.
then he started doing this work. And as you get further into it, he decided to become a coach, and it was all kind of a weird world to him. And then like maybe a year ago, all of a sudden animals started talking to him, and he became an animal communicator. And he's like great. It wasn't my world wasn't weird enough when I was starting to get into this, and now all of a sudden animals are talking to me. What do I do with this?
What do you mean animal was talking to him? What do you mean?
Like Dr. Doolittle almost. Like
Really?
yeah,
That's
yeah.
for real? That
It's
does
for real.
exist?
It's for real.
He can talk to dogs and cats?
It's fascinating. And through him, like, I've been able to kind of get a little bit of it, but not the way that he has that clarity. I remember years ago, I had a woman who was an animal communicator who's actually quite famous now. She's a Hay House author, this woman, Joan Rang Platt. But she had come when I was living in Golden, Colorado, and came over and talked to my chocolate lab. And it was like she asked him about why he kept stealing bread. And he's sitting there looking at her. And she asked him psychically, like she didn't say anything. All of a sudden he's like buries his face and like puts his paws over. And she's like, he says that he just can't resist the taste in his mouth, like the way it feels in his gums when he chews on it. Like he can't resist. But then he went on to talk about like how, he missed me taking him when I went to play volleyball. And she didn't know anything about that. And so
Yeah.
like there's all these like real things that he was telling her.
So, but your friend, it just happened like this, like overnight, or is it something that's a technique that you can learn? One day
Yeah,
just
I mean,
woke
he
up
didn't
and it's
mean
good.
for it to turn on, but when we go into our alignment, we open up to this intuitive channel.
Oh,
And however our gifts want to come through is how they come through. And so by being in that channel for a long time, all of a sudden he's like, that duck just talked to me. He's like, what do I do with that? Like I was already weird enough. I already like didn't know how to explain myself to my friends, and now I got to deal with this. Like this
can he
is
turn
pretty.
that off if he doesn't want to listen to all those animals talking to him?
Yeah,
Does he know
yeah.
to turn
I
him
mean,
off?
I think he can, but it's just so exciting and it's such a fun thing. And it's funny too. Like when he works with people, he's always helping. The animals are always concerned about the owners, and the owners are always concerned about the animals
Yeah,
too. So he'll go to talk to him, and the owner's like, like ask her about her job. She shouldn't be in that job. And he's like,
that's hilarious. And he can talk to them too. He can hear them and he can talk to them.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Isn't that fun? Yeah. Well, you should have him in your podcast. He's great. I'll connect you.
It's like a superpower. Yeah, yeah. Actually, yeah, I would like to talk to him. It's like
Yeah,
a
yeah. He's great.
superpower.
And he's so
Oh,
grounded too, just like a normal computer guy. It's very inconvenient for him to have all these gifts that open.
so
I mean, he
funny.
loves it, but it's also like, really? I'm trying not to be the weird guy, and it just keeps getting weirder.
And can we talk also about your book? You have a book available
Absolutely.
on Audible, Amazon.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a paperback and Audible and
Mm-hmm.
Kindle. So yeah, so it's called Insight, Influence, and Flow. And it's called A Guide for Business Professionals, but it's really for everybody. And it's about aligned living. And I was challenged by my publishing agent when he first booked me. He said, you're not very woo. I don't know that people are gonna really
What you
connect with
mean?
you over your that if you're too spiritual. And he's like, you need to write for business people, but from an idea of energetics. And I'm like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And so it was really fun to write though, because everything that aligned living is, I looked at the science behind it and did all this research with like Dr. Joe Dispenza's work and Heart Math and Greg Braden and all these people that have done all this amazing science behind it, done all these incredible experiments. And it was so fun to take everything I'd been doing and actually back it with science. And so that book is actually a walk into aligned living and the aligned living system through a scientific perspective. Um,
Interesting.
and so, yeah, it was really fun to write and makes it kind of really fun to talk about it from that perspective. And then it gets into the aligned living tools. But
Okay.
yeah, it's really fun to have that book out there because to me, it really like to reverse engineer it and have it come through as a channel and then to go like, well, if this is real, science has got to back it and then find the science that made it make sense,
All
from
right.
that perspective was really fun. So yeah, it's a really fun read.
I'm going to listen to it then. Audible. I love to listen to books. So
Nice, nice. Yeah, the Audible is great to have. That was really fun a lot
yeah.
of synchronicity too. It's funny. I used to live in Ashland, Oregon, and then I was back in Southern California, and I got the offer to go record the Audible. And so I'm like, oh, where is it? It was in Ashland, Oregon, in like this little town in Oregon. So I went back to where I used to live to record at Blackstone Studios, which is apparently the place that a lot of people record out of. But I had no idea it was even there when I lived there. It was funny.
So are you the one reading the book?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
It's your
It was
voice.
fun to read.
Okay.
Yeah, there's so much energetics in it too that I really wanted to be the one to read it because there's so much energy kind of embedded, or well,
Mm-hmm.
not kind of, but embedded in it, particularly with the meditations that are in it and the alignment and stuff. So yeah, it was important to me to be the one to read it.
Oh, and I have for people who are going to listen to the book, I have a link in the show notes. They would find for 30 days for free with
Oh, okay,
Audible.
great,
So click on that and take advantage of this.
nice, yeah, let's do.
Anything else you want to add? Maybe you didn't ask.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a great conversation. It's so fun. So yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. Have you seen? You said you've seen yourself as an empath, right? Is that?
I wasn't sure actually because when I was reading the different category that you described, I was like, where am I? I think that sometimes I think I'm in one of those three, or maybe
Yeah,
the
you
three
can be all
together.
three. You can
But
be
now
all
when we
three,
talk
right?
about it, for sure, before I was an empath.
Yeah.
But now I think I did a lot of work on myself, and I'm
Hmm.
much better, like you said, separating
Hmm.
all those emotion and feelings, and not taking everything on my shoulders, and being
Yeah.
able to say no to people.
Right. Right. The way I used to do it before the line living is I would just pull my energy field in and go, oh, this is great now. I'm not touching it. Right. And that did not work for me because it was a lot, like hard to have an impact.
Yeah.
And so my energy field was always fluctuating based on that. But, that piece, like you do have a big energy. And so it's, one of the things that happens too is like we just have to get really sure of ourselves, right? Like we can't be in doubt. Like one of the things I've really enjoyed as I've gotten more aligned is I can get curious about the world without it streaming into me. And when I was external with my energy, if I got curious about it, I experienced it. It just ran into me. And so, it's so fascinating how we develop these really great coping mechanisms.
Well, I notice that I attract less drama people now.
Yeah,
Not at
yeah,
all.
yeah.
People that come to me now are very stable compared to before, where it was just only like a lot of drama apparent people.
Yeah,
But
it's
now,
so interesting,
not
right?
at
How
all.
as we shift, what
Yeah.
shows up shifts.
Yeah. You shift your energy. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Well,
so
David,
clear.
thank you very much for the conversation. I
Yeah,
really appreciate
likewise. It's
it.
really been fun to spend some time with you today and
Yeah.
hang
And
out.
if
So yeah, thank you.
people want to book a session with you, group session or one-on-one, they
Yes.
can go on your website, I guess, that we're going to put in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have something on there right now where I do like a one-time standalone session if people want to get a sense of what it's like to work for me. And it's a pretty discounted rate that's on there now where they can do a one-time session before they want to do a 10-week program, just because it's a bigger, jump into this work. And so to give them a taste of what it would be like to work with me, that's available on there as well. And um,
Okay.
then I train coaches to do this too. So I'm getting ready to launch the academy for which I've been training coaches for 6 years, but now I'm really turning into a whole academy to actually train a bunch of people to do this
Nice.
same work and to teach the system. So.
Yeah. So you had like a mastermind class or
Yeah, yeah, I have
mastermind
masterminds
program.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so once people go through the 10-week program, they can go into a mastermind program as well
Okay.
to continue the work and go deeper and maintain.
And you have to create an academy for sure. All right. So anybody empath, biohacker, or junkie, spiritual junkie?
So that's kind of junky that I work with you.
That's the only one. Well, you can get in contact with David, put all the information in the show notes, sorry. And he also has a podcast and a book on Amazon. Well, thank you, David.
Yeah, thank
And
you. So fun to be here. I appreciate
yeah,
it. Great to spend some time with you. And
thank you.
thanks so
Bye.
much to the listeners.